Okay. Should be working now. Yeah, ask them if they can hear me. I'm doing that right now. Okay, is audio working? Oh, hello. Can you actually hear me? Is the audio working? Hello. Hello. Trying to see if this have you typed it in? Yeah. Yeah, I did. It's kind of low. Let me upgrade that. Do 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 do. Okay, I turned it up. Is that better? They said you can hear. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I've never ever shared any of my ideas like wide with anybody. Just they've always been in my head, and just I think it's time to start actually talking about this kind of stuff because I do want to make a comic book and you know make it big and popular, and then maybe an animation or something like that because we all have those dreams. We all want to tell our stories, and I've had this story in my head since like junior high of this kind of like big kind of epic team. And now that I have some characters here, and that's anyone who wants to know, Demon Artie is the one who did all the character designs for me. I have her working on some other characters, but she's doing like university stuff right now. So there's going to be some characters I talk about that you can't see because they're not designed yet, but they're in my mind. I know what they look like in my head. But now we're going to just kind of talk about the overall pitch of what I wanted. I don't have a title yet. I'm awful with coming up with titles. I do have names for the characters, but nothing's set in stone. That's one thing I like about comics and just like doing indie work. All this can change like the day before. Like you can come up with the character's name or a name of a world, and then literally the day before you go to print, you can just change it because it's easy enough just to change out a few words. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of never pitched anything before. So I've been taking notes like probably for 6-7 months of just trying to like, instead of it just being in my head, just typing it out. So there's a reason why all of our characters look so different. Like they don't look like they belong in the same show. That's because in my story, there's going to be a like a multiverse. There's going to be multiple planes of existence, and in this, in my universe, there's going to be a group of ancient beings that they've been around since like the beginning of time. They are like the arbiters of keeping universes going, keeping timelines together, and they would battle it out with there's the dark side. There's going to be an evil side, and they want to extinguish the light. They want to extinguish life. They don't like the idea that living things, their whole concept is this evil darkness hates living things because they squander their life. What do these humans do with the gift of life? They squabble, they fight, they destroy, they maim, they do all these terrible things. So the darkness is like, why do we even allow these things to exist? All they ever do is cause harm and destroy. But you have the light, and then there's things where they believe that there is goodness in mankind, in like species of intelligence, because they rather just leave the planets to the animals, because there is no malice in an animal. There is none but human beings. They have that choice, but they also have the ability to evolve. That's where they came from. They were a race that came from just regular life, and they got to the point to where they evolved past all those things. So it's their job to kind of fight back the darkness. It's a balance. Some worlds get destroyed, whole timelines get wiped out, but it's a balance. It goes back and forth, and that balance has been kept for, I don't know, eons and eons and eons. But in the last couple, I don't know, million years or so, the darkness has been, the balance is falling out. The darkness is taking over a little more. More universes that are being destroyed weren't supposed to be destroyed. But then these good guys are supposed to kind of keep it in check, and they're not doing it. So there's a council of all these kind of like beings, and there's one who's the younger one. I want it to be a female. When I say younger, I mean she's only like 10 million years old instead of like 100 billion. And she's like questioning this. She's like, why aren't we pushing back? Oh, you don't know the ways of the universe yet. Just kind of just telling her, just you're lucky to be in the room, that kind of talk. And she's like, we got to help. We got to do something. We got to stop the darkness from pushing because the balances are starting to fall out. And there's a big reason why all this is happening, kind of why they're letting this happen. She hates it. She can't stand it. And I want these ancient beings to be almost bird-like a little bit, like in their facial structure. It's still going to be humanoid looking. They're going to have like 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 feet. But I want them to be a little more kind of skinny, a little more like bird-like. I kind of like pointed features, So they look alien but still familiar, because I don't want any like alien race to be so like they're like a technical monster or something. No, they're still gonna have like human look to them. And she hates this, so she's like pouting about it. But there's an older ancient one who's like, he agrees with her, but he's so old, he's kind of out of the loop and he's not part of like the main thing. So he basically tells her, hey, I know what you're wanting to do. You want to help, and I can show you a way. Basically tells her how she can find, there's like a place where it's out of time. It's out of like universes, kind of like a limbo. And she can pull heroes from other worlds, bring them in, and then use them to fight back the darkness. Because when a universe is lost, there's like an event, something that happens, and that cracks that world and destroys it. And that's when the darkness gets in. And through that one singular event, they can wipe out a whole entire timeline. And it is not, and I want this to be kind of like, and anyone remember the show Quantum Leap? So that's kind of what our heroes have to do. They go to a place, they stop something from happening, and that keeps that world together. And it doesn't always have to be like a huge giant event, like a war or something. I also want there to be episodes where they have to keep, like a little girl wants to join the baseball team, and her making that baseball team and believing herself keeps that world from going under. And it's that one little event. And I want to show that everything matters. Even something as silly as, oh, that kid who wanted to, pass their, the thing so they can be on the team. That joy, that pride they feel in their heart was enough to hold back the darkness. And that kept that darkness from invading that world. So there's going to be big, giant, epic battle type issues where they're fighting monsters and, cosmic beings. And there's going to be things like that. And I kind of want to show, yes, these heroes are like my character. He's kind of like a superhero from like a superhero world. His skills of like fighting the bad guys may not be the best, but he's going to have to figure out ways to help in different ways. So I kind of want to show that you don't have to be a super powered being to be helpful. So she's able to pull heroes from different worlds. And I want there to be rules. And I want there to be like power structures and stuff. She can't just pull anybody. It has to be a very special person in a very unique situation that she can pull out of a world. Because I want this explained to the characters like in the first issue. Because I want one of the characters to be like, oh, why don't you just bring 1 million, superheroes here? And they'd be like, well, look at this. She'll pull like a tree and it'll just evaporate. Because your DNA structure, the atoms in your being can't survive the trip. Only certain people can. So that's why the team is so small. Because I always hated in shows where it's like, why don't they just do this? So I want there to always be a reason why, like, they can't just overpower something. Like, oh, why not just get 1 million heroes? Well, now that's why. Because she could try to bring someone there, but they won't survive the trip and they'll die. And she also will only take people from worlds that are basically done, that are going to get destroyed. So she'll save that one person and have them fight. But at the same time, you're going to get these moments where having to explain that to the hero. Oh yeah, by the way, your whole universe is dead. And then they're that shock of learning that. And then like, oh yeah, now you got to fight another war. You got to fight a war you never knew about. And I want there to be that back and forth where, is it worth this fight? Is it worth, my world's destroyed. Why am I fighting? But she pulled these people because she knows that they're going to do that sacrifice. They're going to be that true hero. Even though their world can never come back, they're going to fight so it doesn't happen to other worlds. So that's like the basic premise of the story. And when they go to these other worlds, just like how they got pulled out of theirs, not every hero can make that trip to the new world. To that, like the one that's falling apart or going to get destroyed. Because I want to do interesting pair-ups. Because when I explain the other characters, one character is really powerful. So, like in something like She-Ra, why doesn't She-Ra just solve every problem? She's so powerful. It makes no sense why she isn't able to solve every problem. In my show, my idea, you can't send that character to every world because they won't survive that trip. So that's why you might have two people team up and they have to kind of figure it out, even though they may not be the best equipped for the problem. They're the only ones that can go. So I kind of like that thing where you're going to have interesting setups and interesting things where characters are going to have to learn to work together who may not be the best cohesiveness together, but they're going to have to figure it out. So going to go just going to talk about the characters. My main character, these names, of course, everything can change because it's just me I'm embarrassed of names. I don't know why. It's just something that makes me feel stupid. Everything I just explained, I'm proud of. Like, I absolutely love that setup. I love that story. I want to see it happen. When I think of the names of the characters, it makes me cringe. Because I'm like, oh, it just sounds, I don't know what it is. I apologize. Please, if the names are stupid, just tell me they're stupid. I don't know. But, so my character, I want him to be Hispanic. And guess what? I want the characters to have representation without that being the thing. I got a female. I got an elf. I got a Hispanic superhero. But it's not about him being Hispanic. It's about him being a hero. So it's there, but I'm not going to be like, oh, look, love him because he's Hispanic. No, love him because he goes through things and he grows and he changes. So for him, Renzo Burnell, he comes from a world where it's kind of like Super Sentai. They're kind of like a Power Ranger family team. So it's him, his mom, his dad, his brothers and sisters. They're a big superhero team. Think of like Gotcha Man. That's why his costume's like, very flamboyant. It's very like big. And so he's part of this team. He's kind of like the middle child. So he fights. He does a thing. He kind of goes through the motions. He kind of just be's a hero because all my family are heroes. I got powers. I fight with them. His powers are going to be kind of think like a Power Ranger. Martial arts, strength, speed. But also I want him to have like where he can focus energy into his arms and legs. So when he hits, he can hit you with like an energy hit. I don't want him to have like Kamehameha like powers where he can shoot out beams. And I want his powers to also to be like snake-like. So he can have like a poison hit. Or if he hits you, he can kind of like paralyze and stuff like that. So I want to like incorporate the Crimson 15 podcast, like the snake. I want that to be part of like the character. So in his world, he's going on a mission, but this is the mission that breaks his world. But he's just kind of not necessarily lazy about it, but he just kind of goes through the motions and it's very over the top. Oh, the evil doctor's attacking the city. You won't get away with this. It's very, they get there, they get into the battle, but they're going to lose. And this he has like a bomb that's going to blow up the city and it's literally going to blow up the city. He gets pulled out of his world. He thinks he just survived the blast because he wakes up in that Nexus realm, that limbo world. And he's like, where the hell did I end up? Did the whole city get destroyed? No, he got pulled out. And that one Nexus event's the one that ruined that whole entire timeline.
Someone has a question from Xena Cartoons. Is he going to have weapons like a laser gun?
No weapons. He has his utility belt, like the belt he wears. And I kind of want to give him, I don't know if I want this to be a physical thing. I want him to have like an AI, like little robot buddy, something small. Because I don't want him to be walking around talking to nobody. Because I kind of hate that in shows where like the main character's talking, but why would they not just be thinking? Like, why would they talk out loud? So I want him to have like, I don't know if I want it to be in his helmet or it to be like a little like cutesy robot thing that, comes out and he's like, it does like the scans because when he gets to that Nexus area, he's like, I got to find out where I'm at. So that thing kind of pops out and he's like, well, where are we? Then it like talks back to him and everything. I don't know if it should have like a R2-D2 Luke Skywalker relationship where you can't understand the robot, but he understands the robot. So I don't know if I want that, but I do want him to have someone to talk to. And he finds his way and sees like this giant citadel tower in the middle of this barren Nexus wasteland. He's like, well, I better just go that way. Goes there and that's when he meets the other characters. All the other characters are already there. So he was the last one to get pulled in to like this team. And that's where kind of like the first story's going to end. The first issue will be him fighting this big battle, learning about his powers, him losing the battle, getting pulled to this world. And that's like, to be continued. That'd be like the first issue. And he's going to be just like, I don't believe this. So you're going to have like that, the that lady I talked about, don't have a name for her yet. She's going to explain basically everything I just explained. He's like, that's bullcrap. That's not right. What do you mean? Send me back. I don't want to be here. And she's like, no, there's nothing to send you back to. If I were to send you back, you'd be wiped out of existence. So he's kind of a hothead. He's kind of pissed off because he kind of has survivor's guilt too. Out of all my family of heroes, I didn't think much of myself. I was just there. I was just part of the team. Like my older brother, he's much stronger than me. Why didn't you bring him? But then she explains, I can't just bring anybody. It has to be someone special. It has to have something in their DNA, in their atoms, in their makeup, in their spirit that allows them to be able to survive that journey. So this is where we kind of meet all the other characters, and they're already there, and they've already went through their process of like figuring out what this is. So the other characters like, yeah, I know I took it really hard too, but they're trying to like talk him into like, okay, don't be so upset about this. But of course, he's just this hothead. He's just like this, forget this place. I'm getting the hell out of here. And that's where we meet Rose's character, but you don't know it's Rose yet. You just see this, what he thinks is a guy, because he just assumes it's a guy. And I want her to have like kind of like Roman type armor, but fully armored. And she's just sitting there, not talking, not anything. And like, oh, don't worry about them. They just sit there. They're doing like their meditation or whatever. And because she's kind of going through the same thing. She doesn't believe what happened. And so she's trying to commune with the gods, and she can't because her universe is gone. But she doesn't believe it. But since my character is like going off, he's being a jerk, he's yelling, he's screaming, she gets up and she's like, hey, you because he like breaks something. Oh, if you want to fight, you can fight me. So, but she's in this giant armor thing, so he just assumes it's a dude. So they go out to like this battlefield. They're like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll kick your butt, whatever. I've been wanting to kick someone's ass anyways. They go out there, and she has a sword and a shield, and she's like, you're not gonna fight with the weapon. And of course he's arrogant. He's like, oh, I am the weapon. So she's like, okay, I don't want you to use this as an excuse, so I won't use my armor or my weapons. So she gets out of her armor, and then you see Rose's character, who looks like this beautiful, like, regular woman. And he's like, what the hell? Like, who the hell is this chick? I'm not going to fight a woman. Then she's like, oh, but she's a goddess. So think like Thor. Think like Hercules. So she's hella strong. She doesn't look like it because he just assumes, oh, it's just some beautiful woman who I'm going to beat the crap out of her. But she's actually the strongest character out of all of them. But so they get in their huge fight, and I wanted to start out with her like, I'll give you 3 attacks so I can gauge you. Then she's just kind of screwing with him, but then she hits him. She hits him so hard, he's like, oh my god, this is a real fight, and that's when the big real fight starts, and that's where you kind of get this like where they're both fighting their emotions because they both hate the idea that they lost everything.
Yeah, that's interesting because this person, I hope I'm saying his name right. Guciom. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Sorry about that. He said you should concentrate on establishing the rules of the universe and then fit the characters into making up the characters first, which could break the balance of the setting.
Yeah, because I want those rules to be hard, and I want those rules to be. I don't like that when you think something's a certain way in a show, and then all of a sudden a character pulls something out of their butt that breaks the rules, and they're like, oh, it's because they're the chosen one. I hate that. I want there to be like that idea. I like the idea where only certain people can be brought to this Nexus world, and only certain people can be sent to solve the problems. Because I don't want everyone to. Because if Rose's character could show up to every fight, she wins because she's so powerful. And I hate when they depower a hero just so the bad guy can win. The bad guy can have a chance. So, and I also don't want every conflict to be a fight. So her immense strength won't be any help in a certain situation. It's going to have to be more about, problem solving in different ways. Not everything is solved with a punch. Not everything's solved with me fighting my way through it. So with Rose, what happened in her world, their world was like a Greek kind of Roman world. It's all goddesses. There's no gods, there's only goddesses. So it's like a woman world type world. They're like a happy, like she's not necessarily happy-go-lucky, but they're like, she's kind of like Thor. They're so powerful. They go down, they fight enemies, they go around, they war, they drink, they do all that kind of stuff. She has a little sister. And that was like the apple of her eye. Her little sister was, even though she has other family members, her littlest sister was hers. Like she looked up to her the most. She cared about her the most. And then she's kind of teaching her combat and everything. There's a big war on their planet. I don't know if they should be fighting. In my mind, I see them as like wolf, kobold type people. They get into a big war with these wolf people. They're fighting and fighting, and they're both down there fighting together. She's an experienced fighter, the younger sister. She dies. She gets killed by one of these wolves. They kill her. And that pisses her off so much that she says, F these wolf people, they're going to die. So she's supposed to be the like this goddess of like justice and of innocence and all these things, and she's going against that. So as a response to her sister dying, she goes like on a warpath. They surrender. So when the wolf people go to the table to basically surrender to like everyone, she kills them. She's like, no, you're all dying. You took my sister. I'm going to take everything from you. And she literally goes out and exterminates that whole entire race of people, which throws that whole world out of whack, because now you have what we're supposed to be like the arbiter of truth and justice just straight up murdering people, because she's killing people that had nothing to do with the war. They just so happen to be of that wolf race. So she goes and kills everybody, then just turns herself in. It's like, whatever, I don't care. Execute me. So at her trial, they're going to basically execute her, but that's when that world cracks. That's when that timeline breaks, and that's when she got pulled out. So she lost everything. She killed all those people, and now she knows that everything got destroyed, so she murdered all those people for no reason, because that world was going to end anyways. So now she has like all that guilt. I lost my sister. I lost my family. I did all these horrible things. Now I'm called a hero. Now I'm going to be this person that's supposed to be this truth and justice that I was supposed to be, but I betrayed all that because of my vengeance. So she has that issues in her heart, but now she has to be that true hero that she was always supposed to be.
Yeah. Garbo187 has a question. How does making children work in the goddess world?
They're just like in Greek mythology, like how Athena was born out of Zeus's head. Or someone was like, oh, there was a cloud hit by lightning and it created a god. Like, it's going to be like that. It's going to be like a mythological thing. And of course, there's going to be like Hercules type characters where the gods had children with humans and stuff. But I want every world to be so rich that I could go back and do issues of just on the individual worlds, just on those individual characters. So the ones I have written out the most are my character and Rose's character, because I just like that idea of during their big fight, they're both have the same feelings of losing everything and guilt and how am I supposed to be a hero? I lost everything. So during their big fight, my character says something that her little sister used to always say. Because whenever she got knocked down, she always said, if I can stand, I can fight. And that's what my character says, because that's what his older brother taught him. And then she's like, why are you saying that? And then kind of goes to this whole like, my character was her little sister in that world. So then she makes that connection. I may or may not have, I lost my sister, but I gained another family. I have brothers now. Brothers I never knew I had. So I want that concept of like, you have a family everywhere. In every universe, you have a family somewhere. So she gets that feeling again of like, oh, I don't have my little sister back, but I kind of have my little sister back in a weird multiverse kind of way.
And Garbo187 has a follow-up question. Is it magic? How long do they live in age?
Well, she's like, again, like gods. They live forever. They can die. They can be killed. Like if they, sustain enough damage, they get their heads chopped off, they can die. But like how Thor and Loki and stuff, like they can live, they can be 5,000, 6,000 years old. As long as they will age out, but that's way, way, way down the line. But so that's how that first two episodes I kind of have that in my mind of like, they both come to an understanding that this is my family, a family I never knew I had. So, but it's like, it's weird because they kind of feel that familiarity, but it's so different because that's my little sister, but now it's this older man, but I know it's her spirit, her life is in him. So I can see that, but then it's like different at the same exact time. I just like that idea of having, even though you lost someone, they're still there somewhere. Like there's somewhere in the world, they're in a heaven, and it's something that they're still there.
Yeah, Xena Cartoons has a question. So are the worlds connected in some sort of way?
They worlds can't affect each other. These ancient beings are the ones that are keeping the balance, and they're the ones that were supposed to keep these worlds from prematurely ending or letting because the darkness has to win sometimes, because there has to be a balance. But they're letting that balance The darkness is not following the balance. They're just taking over whole worlds and whole universes, and they're not doing anything about it. So that connection can only be made with them. Like they can actually crack that world and enter it. So not necessarily they're connected, but in the same way that your spirit is connected to all the other versions of you. So like you couldn't, without their help, you couldn't like travel to another universe. It's not like a science thing. It's like a, I don't know if it's not necessarily magic, because these people are so powerful. It might as well be magic. Like think of like Q in Star Trek. Is it magic? I mean, he can do whatever, he can do whatever the hell he wants. So it's so beyond the concept of human, the way we function, that it might as well be magic.
Yeah, there's actually two questions in a row I can answer. Dragon Kid 1801 said, "Is this a parallel universe or a reincarnation?"
It's a parallel universe. It's a multiverse type thing.
And Jacob B, why did you choose to make a story about gods?
Well, because I like the idea of, because I want there to be all kinds of heroes. See, with Rose's character, she's like a goddess. My character, he's like a superhero. I haven't talked about the other two characters, but they come from such wildly different worlds, and that's why it's so hard for them to like in the beginning to understand each other, because their worlds even function differently. Like my character comes from like a Super Sentai Power Rangers type world, and Rose's character comes from a goddess, Greek mythology type world. Like, could you try to explain Super Sentai to Hercules? You know what I'm trying to say? They're not going to understand. Like, what the hell does that even mean? But to them, it makes sense. But that's why I want that to have that multi kind of genre world. And they have to learn to work together. They have to learn to be that family that they know they are in their hearts. They just have to figure it out.
Yeah, and Carby197 said, "How did the Limbo goddess came to be? How about her sister? What are the goddesses? What are they goddesses of?"
Well, see that those ancient beings, they've been around since forever. They evolved to that point. That's why they defend life. That's why they defend sentient life, because they want them to have the chance to evolve to this point too. The darkness doesn't like it because in the beginning, I don't know if anyone jumped in late, but the darkness doesn't want there to be sentient life, because what do we do with our lives? We fight, we bicker, we destroy, we do the most horrible things to each other. And the darkness is like, forget it. Why do you fight for these species? They're the only ones to make it to this level of existence. They go, it's never going to happen again. What's the point of letting these people suffer? Just kill them all. Just don't even let them be. But they're like, no, if there's even the smallest chance that these sentient beings can evolve, become more than what they are, we're going to defend it. But they're starting to slowly but surely not do the defending. So there's this, I don't want to give away everything, but there's a reason why they're kind of letting it slip. But that's the whole point. So that's why they've always been, but even though technically they evolved from like how regular humans evolved, and they slowly but surely over millions and millions of years overcame their selves. They understood there's something bigger in the universe, and they were the ones that discovered this multiverse and discovered this other thing. And that's when the darkness discovered them, and that's when they had their first like kind of temporal war, and they came to kind of an agreement of a balance.
Yeah, and Carby197, that's kind of a fun question. Does the Sentai guy shout his attacks?
He's gonna be funny. It's gonna be like, snake venom strike. He's gonna like, of course it's gonna be that kind of thing. And I want that to be a point to where the Rose's characters be like, when you're fighting, why do you talk so much? If you fought as well as you talk, you would be a better fighter. Like I want her to be like, you have this great strength. You waste it on never shutting up. You're always like, he's a crap talker. He's kind of like a Spider-Man. He's always cracking jokes, and he's always like talking crap to his enemy. And Rose's character hates that, because when you're in a fight, you're fighting. Why are you talking? Like if you get busy fighting, don't get busy talking. But they kind of learn to be that family, and learn that, okay, that's the way he is. And in his world, that's perfectly normal. You shout your attacks, you jump in the air, flaming spin kick of the Inferno, then like all the letters pop up on the screen, they do in like all those kinds of like anime Super Sentai shows. But moving on to the other characters, N15 PCA's character, he is from think of like Fairy Tail, that anime. Very soft fantasy. Very like, there's magic and stuff, but it's almost, not saying it's necessarily silly, but it's not Lord of the Rings. It's more of like what do you want?
No, I was gonna say, Sebastian Berry said, "What inspired you to make this story?" Also, love the idea of the multiverse.
Because I've always loved anyone who watches my reviews. I love family. I like the idea of family, and I believe that you have like your family on Earth. Even if you don't have a family in this multiverse, there is a family for you somewhere. There's a connection for everybody. Every human being has a connection to something. Even, just like saying like, maybe not in this world, but in another one you did. And I like the idea that family bonds go beyond just what your understanding of what life is. It goes, you're the souls and the lives of your family are connected across all universes. And there's that, and that's another aspect of the show is that light, that love of a family. That's what keeps back the darkness. That on its own is enough to fight back the darkness. But with the back to M15PC's character, he runs a guild with his family, and he's kind of like the one who makes all the deals. He's the smart guy. He can fight because I want him to have like potions, and he also does I want to say like he knows not necessarily magic, but like rune spells, and I want him to have like since his arm's mechanical, I wanted to be able to interface with like other things. Like his arm can go and it's like a cannon arm, or he can like change it up and it's like a shield and he can do other things with it. I kind of also wanted to have like maybe, do you remember, if anyone remembers the Return to Oz, remember TikTok? I want him to have like a mech like that, where it looks like it was made in the 1920s, what they thought the future would look like. So it's going to be copper. It's going to have like, so he can interface and be inside of this like kind of like mech suit. And that's how he fights. He prefers not to fight, but he can if he has to. He's more the guy who goes, signs the contracts, sends out the guild members to certain things. And that's his world. They get attacked by some big demon thing, and that's what causes their world to crack. So he's more of like the analytical type. He's the one that's going to be like, well, should we think about this before we run in there and try to punch everything? Like he's the one who's going to be the level-headed one out of the group.
And someone had a really interesting question. Dragon Kid 1801. What happens if someone meets themselves from a different universe?
They can. It's not like what was it, Back to the Future? It's not going to rip the worlds apart or anything like that. It's not going to be like, or they have to hide from themselves. But I want these worlds to be so different from each other. You even will be different ages. Like if like my character went to another world, maybe my character is a 90-year-old grandma. And it's just different. And it's just one of those things where not everyone's going to be like a mirror copy of each other. I want there to be all kinds of different worlds and all kinds of different situations. So it's not going to be like a thing where they have to avoid themselves. But the world's so big, I mean, that'd be like, oh, I'm gonna like send you somewhere in Australia. Hope you don't run into your brother. I mean, like, how's that? You know what I'm trying to say? But that's another funny kind of storyline where maybe they have to help themselves, like in a funny way. Like, see, I want there to be action stories. I want there to be funny stories. I want there to be sad stories. I want there to be heartwarming stories. I want there to be not just a straight up action show. I want there to be all different kinds of missions they have to go on.
And Garbly 197 said, "Is the goddess weirded are by the elf's magic?"
Well, see, that's another thing too. The elf character, he comes from a more of a Elder Scrolls, Lord of the Rings fantasy world where it's not so silly and it's more real, and it's because his race of elves, they're like wood elves and they're like slaves in his world. So he's had a horrible life. He's like kind of like a Spartacus type character where he kind of raises himself through the slaves, causes a rebellion, fights back, goes to save his people, but that's the event that breaks this world. So by him doing something good, it caused his world to end. And that's what made enough for that darkness to get in there and crack that world. So he's conflicted on the fact that like, well, I was saving my people. I was supposed to, so you're telling me in that world we were supposed to just be slaves? We weren't supposed to have this uprising? And he's like, what the F is that about? So he has magic, but very more of a think Dungeons and Dragons. He has like entangle, some healing spells, but they're nothing like how like a full blown like sorcerer. He kind of has more like nature type magic, and it's going to be more like when he's in shadows, he can be invisible, or if he can when he stands still, you can't hear his breathing. So he's gonna have more like sneaking abilities and stuff like that. He's gonna be more the rogue elf character from a D&D campaign. So you have a D&D character, a low fantasy, anime fantasy world with M15PC's character. You have a goddess, and then you have a Super Sentai guy, all interacting with each other and trying to figure out how and why they were brought to this world, if it's even worth fighting for. But they all come to the conclusion that even though we lost our worlds, we can keep this from happening to other people. We may have lost our families. We gained a second family we never knew of, but we can keep that pain from someone else.
Yeah, Alec just said he was late, so he doesn't have all the details.
Oh,
so.
well, yeah. I'm gonna keep the video up, so
Yeah,
you can go back to the beginning and do the explanation. But yeah, that's kind of like the basic pitch, and I want it to be open ended enough to where this can seriously be 5 issues or 500 issues. And I don't know if I want to bring in any more characters. I kind of want them to meet other characters as they go to other worlds, because I kind of like this group of 4. And then you have the Ancient One character. So there's a group of 5. And she's kind of like their Zordon. She's kind of like their Gaia. She's like their the one who guides them. Because if she were to go into another world, they would instantly know. All the other people know, and the darkness would know. And they would use that as an excuse to invade that world and destroy it. So she's able to use these other heroes as kind of like a sneaky way of around. What she's doing is technically wrong against a multi-dimensional law. But she has to do something because she can't just watch the darkness take over.
And Jacob B has a question. Will there be any organization trying to control the timeline like the TVA and Marvel?
No, well, see, there's just the two. There's the light and the dark. And that's the balance. And I don't necessarily want the darkness to be evil. It's just the balance of the light. You put a light on something, it casts a shadow. Is your shadow evil? No, it's just there. And they have and again, is the evil wrong? Is the darkness wrong? Are they so wrong into thinking that sentient life, all we do is destroy and maim and kill and enslave and genocide and do all these horrible things to each other? Wouldn't it be better if there was no sentient life? Just leave it to the plants and animals? So they're kind of right. But if there's even the smallest chance of goodness, of this them becoming more than themselves, evolving beyond, just worldly wants and worldly needs, and they can make that next step, it's worth fighting for.
Yeah, and Kirby 197 has a question. What's the group called?
See, that's another thing too. So I don't know if they should. Here's the thing: since my character's like a Super Sentai guy, he wants the team to have a name. But Rose's character's like, that's stupid. We don't read names. We don't need to do like a Captain Ginyu. Like, oh, we are here to defend the light. Like you're doing all things. She's like, why are you even talking about this? That's the stupidest thing you ever heard. Because in her world, that's just something beyond their concept. Like her and the elf are like, what the hell are you talking about? That's stupid. But like. M15 PCA's character comes from more of a lighthearted fantasy world. He's like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. Like, I want there to be that dynamic, kind of like how everyone has like their personalities and they clash like a family. Not everyone's going to get along with everything. And not everyone's going to want to solve every problem the same way. So I kind of want there to be those like conversations like we're having right now where they're going to have like just because my character comes from a certain world, he's used for things being a certain way. So it's not going to be that way every time. And there's going to be times where you have to get out of your comfort zone. And you're going to have to fight a different way. You're going to have to learn a different way. And I want the characters to have moments where they're not going to win every fight. They're not going to be able to save every world. Because I always hate it to where it's like, oh, the good guys show up, they're going to win. I want it to where they go into a battle and things happen and they lose that world and they lose a whole timeline. So there's going to be wins and losses, but they're going to learn. And I want them to question. I don't want them to blindly follow. I want them to be where they're like, okay, so we're going to this world. Why this world? And then, of course, the Ancient One is going to always be like, don't worry about it. I know what I'm doing. But they're going to be like, you need to explain more. You can't just expect us to do all these things. I know we're supposed to be doing good, but why are we doing this? Because they need to understand more. So I want there to be that conflict to where after a little bit, they're going to start questioning the whole motive of why they're doing this. And if what they're doing is so good, how come there isn't more of her kind helping out? Like they're going to start figuring out like, whoa, are you doing something you're not supposed to be doing and we're just like, going along with it and you're not telling us the whole plan? But it's one of those things where it's like, you don't need to know. But that causes conflict. That causes, what do you mean we don't need to know? And I want there to be that where they have to come to an understanding, not with themselves as a family, but also their de facto leader, this Ancient One, this lady, where they have to come to terms with, I want to say faith isn't the complete knowledge of all things. Sometimes you're not going to know. Sometimes you're going to have to do what you just think is right. And you may not know if it's the right thing to do, but you have to trust your heart that you're doing the right thing. and that's like a crisis of faith. I want the characters to go through things like that.
Yeah, Sebastian and Bar, there's 2 questions here. Says, what's something that would separate this from other multiverse shows like Rick and Morty or Stars versus etc.?
Because like I said in the beginning, only certain people can make the trip to this Nexus world.
Exactly.
And once they're there, only certain people can go to other worlds. Like I say, there's a crisis on one planet, only the Sentai hero and the elf can go.
Another one, Jacob B wants to know, how long have you been working on the story?
Like I said, this idea of like this multi-dimensional family has been in my head since I was in junior high. But actually typing it out, maybe the last 2 years. And actually like thinking about it and actually like imagining. And it really came to life when I had Demon already design my characters. That's when I really thought, okay, I can visually see these characters do these things. And that's another thing. I wouldn't mind doing a comic book because that can always lead to something else. And like crowdfunding and all that. I want to wait till I have more subscribers on YouTube because I don't want to do a crowdfunder and it fail because that'd break my heart. But I want the art to be good. And I'll save up money to get a good artist. Like I will not release something that I don't think looks cool. And the action, I don't want the action to be so over the top like the last seasons of the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where it's like Gruger Login, where it's like that trigger animation. It's too much. That's way too much flash. That's way too much just things happening. You don't even know what's happening in the scene. If anyone can go, there's an anime called Shadow Skill. That's the power levels where I kind of want my characters not to be too much stronger than that. Where they can hit people, they fly across the arena, they hit the wall, they can crack boulders, but I don't want them to be so powerful that they can fly in outer space and blow up a planet. Like I don't want Dragon Ball Z-esque power levels where it's just so, because once you start doing that, you have to start making your villain stronger. Then the good guy gets stronger, then the villain gets stronger, then they get so strong, it's like ridiculously powerful. Where it's like, okay, that's. But yeah, I'm trying to think. That's kind of like the premise. Is there any more questions?
Yeah, a couple more. Garby197 said, are they recruiting villains? People that are not related to darkness, or are they just making trouble for their own selfish reasons?
Well, see, the darkness doesn't like the idea of there being sentient life because we just waste our life. So, and that's another thing too. See, I kind of want the darkness to be doing what she's doing. They are recruiting people that hate humanity. People, see, I want there to be the lesson, the overall lesson of my because I like lessons. I call me an 80s cartoon where I like there to be a moral to the story. There to be, you always have a family. Somewhere you have a family. Even if they're in a different universe, you got a family. And 2, you decide what to do with the sadness in your heart. See, the darkness is going to go to people who, because again, like the elf, his whole race was enslaved. He would be a perfect candidate for F this. Why should people have any people at all? Because all we do is enslave people and destroy. But he took that as a way to fight for light, to fight for goodness. See, but at the same time, he could have easily been turned to darkness. And I kind of want the darkness to be recruiting an anti-team, but I don't want you to know that till like later on. I just want it to be like this vague enemy, and slowly but surely you start to see more of the darkness recruiting their set of their champions. And I want them to kind of be like that anti-team. Remember like in the anime X, where the Beast had their team, so basically like the devil had his team of like evil people, then the good guys had their team, and then that was like the two forces that end up having to fight together. But I do want them not to be so one-dimensional. I know everyone's like, oh, always feel bad for the bad guy. I want you to understand why they do what they do, but they chose to do the wrong thing. So much like Magneto, I absolutely love Magneto in the X-Men. He's my favorite villain of all time. But he chooses to do wrong things because he was hurt and the things that happened to him. I understand why he hates humanity. I understand why he wants there to be peace for mutant kind. But the way he goes about it's wrong, and that's what makes him a villain. And you can't forgive that. So I want there to be those dynamics where it's not like, oh, feel bad for me, my mommy didn't hug me, that's why I'm a villain. No, it needs to be something more than that.
Yep, and Sebastian has an interesting question. Also, does reviewing bad shows like She-Ra help you writing skills? Is
yes.
It something you learned not to do the other bad shows did?
Yeah, like I said, with She-Ra, why doesn't She-Ra turn to She-Ra and beat the crap out of everybody? Why didn't she use all her super badass powers and just win? They gave her like confidence issues in the last season just so she wouldn't be able to turn to She-Ra and kick everyone's ass. I don't want that to be the reason why my heroes lose. Or making the like the I keep Noelle Stevenson has made me a better person just because I don't want to be her. There was no reason why Horde Prime didn't go back in his spaceship and just destroy the planet. What was stopping him from doing that? His own hubris, his own stupidity. I want my villain to be smart. I want the darkness to do things that make sense. I want them to divide and conquer. I want them to poison the well, so to speak. I want them to spread mistrust and hatred amongst the people because I'm only bringing out what's inside of you. I wouldn't have been able to make you hate life if that hatred wasn't already inside you. So it's kind of like they bring out the worst in you, but it wouldn't be able to do it if you didn't already have it. So they're smart. They know how to manipulate. They know how to, so they're not going to just be like, do, the good guy's got the good power. I'm going to stand here while he hits me. They're not going to do anything stupid like that. I want them to be an intelligent villain, but also not a, just not like a blind monster that just is eating up worlds. They have their reasons why they're doing what they're doing. And in their minds, they're the good guys. They are saving these universes from pain, from suffering. Why let these people suffer? Don't let them live at all, because it'd be better for them.
And Cardi B has another question: are the zealots that believe in the darkness is right, enjoying it, thinking that it comes after what they'll be better existence, or this will make them ascend into another existence?
Well, they're tricked into their way of believing. Do they remember Neverending Story, Grimark? And they're like, why do you want to do this? Because it's like, F you, I can. I don't care anymore. What happened to me in my life, these dark beings, they're not dark. They're just the shadow that they know that it's inevitable. That mankind, that the human race, elf kind, whatever world they're from, all they're going to do is kill each other. They're going to destroy. They're going to enslave. All people know how to do is be greedy and kill, and they'll do whatever for themselves. So I believe in their way of thinking. Wipe it all out. Just wipe the board, because why let a child suffer in slavery when I could have just, if that kid never been born, wouldn't it have been better for them? See, and then there's that argument. It, like, you need to ask yourself, so could you prevent this child from ever living, or they would live a life, but it would be a horrible life? Would you rather them to be dead or alive? See, I believe you should always choose life, just because I feel like that should be, there's always hope for something better. But when you're in the darkness, you don't see hope. You don't see light. You only see darkness.
Yeah, Dragon Kid 18-1 has a question. Is there a reason you pick light versus darkness to represent the different groups?
Because it's just that classic heroes, the good guys and the bad guys. I grew up with cartoons, Thundercats, He-Man and things like that. The X-Men cartoon was probably my most favorite cartoon of all time. And you have like in the X-Men, you have a group of people fighting for something better. And they're persecuted. They're treated like crap. They hate them. They're criminals in most people's eyes, but they know there's something better to fight for. And what better than the light versus the dark? And I like the idea that there's always like the tale of the darkness, the biggest, darkest hole you could think of can be held back with just a little match. A spark can hold all that darkness back. And that's what the darkness hates that. They hate the fact that the hope of a child can hold back the darkness. The love of a family can push back the darkness. Just the idea of a family caring about each other and loving each other is enough to keep the darkness away. And I love that aspect because I believe in that. I believe that as long as, you go through anything in your life, if you kind of can keep that hope, that light in your life, that darkness cannot swallow your heart. It can't get in. Darkness, no matter how big it is, can't push out light. But light can push back darkness. And all it takes is a little bit. And then one person sees you push back the darkness, maybe they light their candle, they light their match, and then you guys can all come together, and that big light can push back even more darkness. That's kind of like the overall theme of what my story is about.
And Carby 197 said, what do the heroes think of them killing their enemies? How do their morals differ?
See, like Rose's character, she's like, it's the battlefield, they're the enemy. She's cool with it because that's what you do. But like N15 PCA's character and my character, since they come more from kind of like a Sentai world where death really isn't like a thing, like it's a thing, but it's not as prevalent as like in the more serious worlds. They're more kind of shaken by it. But every story is not going to be about like, oh, you have to kill the bad guy or you have to beat the enemy. Maybe sometimes it's getting someone just to think differently, just to even entertain the idea that there is a different way. So I want there to be more than just like, oh, go kill the bad guy and that makes the bad guy go away. Maybe it's changing the mind of someone. Maybe it's just telling a kid that they can be more than their surroundings, that they can grow up and do something about where they live. Oh, I came from this area where, everyone, if you don't work in the factory, you don't have a job, and that's basically what you do. But teaching that you can learn things, you can learn to read, you can learn science, you can learn something that kid learning that saves that world from falling apart. It saves that fissure, that crack where the darkness could get in to destroy it, gets sealed up because that one kid believed in himself. So I want there to be more than one different way to solve the problem. And that's why I kind of like the idea that this can go on for as long as I want it to, because those stories can never end. You can come with a million stories about things like that. And I want there to be funny ones. I want there to be ones where they have to help a little girl make cookies or something, where it's like she has to find the ingredients and she doesn't believe in herself. And little stories like that. And those might not be full blown like issues, but maybe like the back of the comic, like a 3-page little mini issue. I want there to be moments, because that's in life. You have moments where you laugh, moments where you cry, moments where you're happy, maybe moments where you fail big. You utterly F up royal. And I want the heroes to go through all those things.
Yeah, like even Carby D says, when the group goes fight, do any of the members think they should not kill the enemy?
I want there to be because there's a twist. And I want to tell you guys about it, but I don't want to tell you because it's going to ruin the twist. But it changes the team dynamic to where there's a big trust issue. And if I can't trust you in a battle, I can't turn my back to you because I don't know if you're going to stop that guy from stabbing me in the back. I have to be able to trust you. And that's something I want there to be, that not trust in the beginning. They build this trust and they're kind of working as a good team. They're basically find out we're family. But then something happens, and then you get that weird moment of like, are you going to do that again? Is this situation going to come up again? And you're going to do that thing I never thought you would do. So I want there to be that there will be trust issues. Things will happen. People will solve problems, and it may not sit well with some of the characters. And they will have those just like a family. If there's an issue in the family comes together to solve the problem, not everyone's going to agree with how the problem was solved.
And Carly B is kind of elaborating on that, 197 a little more. He goes, are the enemies mostly robots, or are they assembly line minions, like not really alive?
They're alive. I want that might be a thing too. Maybe one of them, they come from a world of where everyone's robotic, or where it's more of a artificial life situation. But I do want most of the characters to be organic, like they are human, or like wolf people, or like cat people, or elves. I want them to be flesh and blood. But having a robot character might be kind of cool, because my main character has a little robot buddy, like a little like computer robot that he can talk to. That's like his basically like a tiny R2D2 for him. So it's like I also want funny moments. If you were here in the beginning, I was talking about I want Rose and my character to have a huge fight. And I want my character to be so pompous about himself. He's like, hey, make sure you take plenty of pictures, because I'm going to beat the crap out of her. And then, like, he's getting his ass whooped. And then I want the computer to be like, do you still want me to take pictures? And he'd be like, no, just stop. I'm getting my ass kicked. But I want that. And I don't want someone to be, I want every fight to have a flow, a back and forth where someone was winning, the other person starts winning, someone gets the upper hand, there's a reversal, something explodes and knocks. So I don't ever like the idea of a character walking into a situation and I'm the best thing ever and I beat everything.
Yeah.
Like Captain Marvel. I hate that. When Captain Marvel showed up in Endgame and she blew up that whole entire Dreadnought without even breaking a sweat, that is so stupid. I don't want any of my characters to be that powerful because it makes no sense why any enemy can stand up to them.
Yeah, Cardi B has a couple more questions. Something that none of the members have a problem destroying, and is the robot buddy the mascot of the show? Well,
see, I want her to be cute. I want it to be fun. So I haven't designed them yet, but I do kind of have an idea of what I want them to look like. Again, Demon Artie's at university right now, so she hasn't been able to do any more designs, but I do have her she's gonna work on the Ancient Ones design, and I'm gonna kind of give her a couple more character designs. She's not comfortable with drawing a full comic. So I want her to be like the character designer, and then I'm going to find another artist to do the actual art for the comic. But I do want. Here's the thing, I am loyal, like stupidly loyal. I know since Artie did those original designs, I want her to have her stamp on the main characters. Of course, she's not going to be able to design every character, but I want her to have, because because she created those first characters, and that means something to me. And I want her name to be on it, saying like, original character designer by Demon Artie, and then art by then whoever I get to do the art for the actual comic. But I want her to do these 4 main characters and the ancient one, and I want her to do those designs. And if she wants to do more, wonderful, but I want her to be involved in that original process.
And Reginald's another thing. Since the narrative is done in the medium of comic, is there ideas for unique art that can be distinctive and unique that has never been done before in terms of visuals?
See, here's the thing. Since I kind of was messing around with the idea that I want it's difficult because you do have to find a multifaceted artist or different artists, but like each world to have its own look. See, I haven't decided. If anyone remember Quantum Leap, let's say my Sentai character goes to a steampunk world. Should he look like people in that world? Like in his mind, he sees himself, but like to everyone else, he would see someone who belongs in that world, because when he's standing like a sore freaking thumb, his cape and everything, he'd look like, who the hell is this guy? Or should he be like the steampunk version of himself in that world? So I kind of want each world to have its own look, its own feel, because it's going to be like a different genre. Because I want there to be like a cyberpunk world that you have to go to. It's more like, Blade Runner. So, a goddess walking around in her white robes wouldn't fit in that world. But imagine cyberpunk goddess. How cool would that look? So I want there to be like these unique looks and unique art styles and unique takes on the characters. So when they go to these different worlds, they're going to have different looks about them.
Yeah, and Sebastian has another question. Since you have heroes that can only enter worlds, are you thinking to have 2 stories in the same episode where one team is in one world and the other one's in the other?
Yeah, more things could be happening at the same time. And like maybe, see, and that's when they start learning more about the connections, more about how we do affect each other. The things that we do, the things that we say, how we feel does have an effect on things. And maybe these 2 worlds, what separates them is a little bit thinner than what separates other worlds. And they have to complete a tasks differently, but also the same, but on 2 different universes. So they have to split the team up. So I kind of like that idea. I want there to be all different kinds of ways that things happen, but I still want there to be rules. I still want there to be, where a character doesn't just all of a sudden, like in She-Ra, where she can breathe in outer space and jump around from spaceship to spaceship. And it's just like, I guess she can do that now. I don't want something like that to just happen. And I also want to show my characters training. I still want them to show, because like in this Citadel, and there they have like everything they need. And since it's like a Nexus world, they don't need to eat. And it's like one of those weird things, they can eat, but they don't need to. But they will still, like, my character likes to work out. He does like his runs and everything, because that's part of like who he is. And I still want those things happening. I want N15 PCA's character to study. I still want him to look up things and look through tomes and do experiments and stuff, because that's what he does to keep himself going. I just don't like the idea that my characters are just in bubbles until they're needed. They're doing things.
And Carly, when I said was another question, what are the character's weaknesses, bot and character, like arrogance or self-doubt and powers? Like, is the elf weak to some specific kind of magic or some kind of material like cast iron?
Yeah. So you think D&D rules for him, for the elf character. So he can, not saying he has action points, but basically the way that he functions, like. And since he's more going to be more that stealth character, his strength isn't that great. He has speed and he has stealth. And in an open fight, yeah, he can fight a little bit, but his ability is to get into the trees, to get into the shadows, and that's how he attacks from. That's how he works. My character, he's arrogant. He thinks his don't stink. He's I'm because again in the Super Sentai world, the good guys always win. So he just assumes every battle they're going to win. So that's why when his world cracks and they lose, everyone's like, what do you mean we can't stop the bomb and it's about to go off? And they're all looking at each other like, what do you mean that doesn't happen? And that's when his self-doubt comes in. What do you mean I can lose? What do you mean? What? The people died? So he has those confidence issues with the goddess character. She has all these, I guess, with her abilities. I want her to be able to summon different kinds of swords and weapons. But the more she uses her power, she can drain out quickly. she can run out of energy fast if she's not careful about how she uses her protection and how she uses her armors and how she uses her weapons. But again, she's also a little arrogant herself. Well, I'm a goddess. I'm better than you. You know, she automatically has that mindset in her head. So if she goes out, like goes all out and does things that she kind of oversteps herself and the fight goes on a little too long, she can power out and start to really weaken herself.
And Kirby, the one I said was another question. These have been actually really good questions. All the questions have been good, by the way. It could be that they just change their clothes by entering into another world, or do they transform into clothes and look for the universe, which would lead to some multi-arts per world if that becomes possible.
Yeah, see, I don't know if it's like as soon as they enter the world, their actual like visual look changes, or like they just like, oh, we're going to this world, let's find clothes that look like that. I kind of like the idea of them showing up and then they have to look at themselves like, okay, this is what I look like now. Like they don't know what they're going to look like before they get to the world, and you kind of have to figure out, oh, okay, this is what I am now. And I kind of want, and I also want the his little robot buddy to change too. So like in a normal world, it'll be like a cat, or something. It won't be a robot anymore because in that world they don't have robotics like that. So it'll be just like a dog or something, or like a lizard or something silly, where it's like, oh, okay, I guess in this world you're just like a creature.
And it's funny that you mentioned that because Kirby has another little more on it. Like if they enter a 1920s cartoon, will they gain the same cartoon physics and have to learn how to utilize the newfound cartoon characteristics?
See, that's something where I don't know how far I want to take the multiverse thing. Like in Spider-Verse where there's like Spider-Ham, where it's like he lives in a Looney Tune world. I don't know if I want to take it that far, but with this, my concept, it can go anywhere. So if they go to a world, so they will have to confine to the rules of that world. So like if N15 PCA's character goes to a world where there is no like robotics, his mech will just be like a truck. It'll just be like a vehicle, or it would be like if they go to like a fantasy world that didn't have like mecha steampunk stuff, it would be like a wagon. Like it wouldn't actually be a thing. Like, so he wouldn't be able to access that if that world doesn't have something like that. Because I don't, again, like I said, I don't want the goddess to show up to a cyberpunk world and then she's able to just use all her goddess powers in the same exact way. I want it to be unique. So her powers would translate to what the cyberpunk equivalent would be. So instead of being able to like summon the lightning bolt, she'll be able to like scramble someone's like electronics or something. And that's something they're going to have to learn while they're in the world. But as they do more of these missions, they kind of get a feeling about, okay, this kind of world, and they kind of get more used to it. But in the beginning, I kind of want it to be an S show, like a crap show, where they're kind of screwing up. They're kind of not getting it, but they slowly but surely start getting better at it. But as soon as the heroes start getting really good at what they're doing, that's when I want to throw in that twist, and that's what kind of breaks the trust, and that's when things start getting a little more like, oh God, are we doing the right thing? Are we really doing what the light wants us to do? Or are we just doing what she wants us to do? So I want there to be that turning point, like mid-season.
And Sebastian has another question. Will the fights have blood or anything, or do you want to keep it kid-friendly while also being serious?
I do want there to be deaths because like their worlds die. So everyone dies in those worlds that end. And there is going to be a big death scene. And then I'm still battling it in my mind because I don't like how in Marvel Comics, Doctor Strange is going to die. Then 3 issues later, Doctor Strange came back to life. But I'm struggling if I leave it ambiguous so you don't know if a character died. And then like you find out later that they didn't die. I know that's like a fake out. I know they do that in a lot of shows. But I want there to be a moment. Again, I can't give away the twist because I think it's so freaking awesome. This twist is going to happen to a character. People lose confidence in each other. Something happens. They have to make it right. Then in that process of making it right from that twist, I don't know if that character should die or not. Someone's going to die. I don't know if I should keep it permanent or if it should be ambiguous or they escape it somehow. But I want there to be that impact. I want there to be that hit of sometimes when you F up and it's a huge F up and you got to fix it. You know, I'm going to steal a line from Sin City. Sometimes you got to prove to your friends you're worth a damn. And sometimes that means dying. And sometimes that means killing a whole lot of people. So there needs to be a huge, and I want there to be consequences. So when they fail a mission or they fail like a thing they're supposed to do, that timeline breaks and everyone dies. That whole timeline is erased. It's gone forever. So I don't want it to be like, oh, they lost, but it's okay. Just that's a couple people died. No, that universe is lost to the darkness.
And Retro has kind of interesting. Has a question here. He goes, "Are there going to be elements that will change? Well, that will challenge viewers to consider if they don't like the series or not."
Well, again, I love my ideas. I guess everyone loves their own ideas, but of course, there's gonna be people not gonna like it because I like the like there is. Here's the thing: I hate the idea of representation, but I have a female goddess. I have a wood elf. I would which in their world they would be like the minority. Then my character is Hispanic, and I'm not gonna push it. It just is. They just are that. But it's not their whole character. I know there's going to be people out there, they're going to be like, oh, look at this. And they're going to only focus on surface level qualities. And I'm sure people are going to want to champion that. But I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, check out my strong female character. I want to be, oh, look up my cool character. It just happens to be female. But that's not the only thing about her that's amazing. That she's a hero and she's a badass and she has all these cool abilities. But I also want her to have that vulnerability where she gave in to that revenge. She gave in to that hatred. So she does have that part of her that she's supposed to be the goddess of like truth and justice, justice and innocence. So when her sister died, that innocence died and that kind of killed that little bit of her. But she still has to live up to that ideal because that's what she's for. She's for that justice. She's for that innocence. And saving these other worlds in some small way, she feels like she's saving her sister every time she saves the world.
And Kirby, a kind of interesting question. I thought this was really fun. Can they go to the world where they meet you, Crimson?
See, there could be a funny world where they come to like our world where like they meet like the people. And see, that's where I can get into like cameos and like do funny stuff like that. Like I know like in other people's like Kickstarters, like if they pledge so much, you can like be in the comic and I could have like a little side story. And that's a funny thing. There can be full blown 45-page issues of like a giant epic arc. And there can be, seriously, a 4-panel comic like Lucky Star that can be a funny situation. I want there to be all kinds of aspects to this show, to this comic, to this idea, because just like in real life, your life isn't always sad. It isn't always happy. It isn't always funny. There's all kinds of things happen to you. Your life is built up of so many things.
Yeah, and Xena Cartoons had a question too. It goes, is there a map or a writer that tells you which world they need to go to?
There's going to be, like, in that citadel, the ancient one, goddess lady, the ancient one, she's going to be the one sending people places. And there's going to be worlds that are going to get lost, and you can't go to them because there isn't that special fissure for them to reach, and none of them have the right molecular makeup to survive the trip. So there's going to be times where they're going to have to watch a world get destroyed, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's what makes every world they're able to go to so special, because they can do something about it. So there's going to be, I don't know if there should be like a, map in the middle of like the citadel that like lights up when like there's a world that can be saved, like a little red blip, and like, okay, in the next 26 hours on this planet, there's going to be an event. There's everything that we know. And there's going to be times where they think they know what the event's going to be, but it's something completely different. And they're going to have to figure that out.
This one, Carby 197 said, could there be a council of Reeds or Rex type of group, made up of just one person from all around the multiverse?
See, only certain people can make the trip. Only certain people can survive it. And the only council is going to be the darkness and the light people. That the ancient people of the light and the ancient people of the darkness. Those are going to be the only two kind of like group. And then like in the beginning, like I said, they all kind of come to a decision. Okay, we're not going to do anything about this. And then like, what the hell? What do you mean we're not going to do anything? Because they used to like full on go to war. But they're like taking this weird back seat. And you're like, why are they doing this? But I don't want to give away why they're doing what they're doing. But there's a reason behind it. And maybe what the ancient one is doing isn't necessarily helping the situation. Or maybe it is. And I want there to be the conflict. Because I don't want her character to be like this, like, oh, I'm the one who sends you on missions. I want her to have conflicts too. And I want her to be times where she goes away. Kind of like Gandalf. Well, no, Gandalf would just go somewhere. She's going to have to commune and talk with those people. And she still has to interact with her ancient beings and kind of hide what she's doing. So there's going to be storylines where it's just her and it has nothing to do with the rest of the team. Because I want everyone to be important. That's why I don't like necessarily want a humongous cast. Because something like in She-Ra, the last season, what did Frosta do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She befriended Scorpia for one episode and did nothing the rest of the season. I don't want a character to be squandered like that. I want everyone to feel like they're important, that their story has meaning to the overall arc of the whole entire story.
Yes, there's another question. I don't mean a little council. I mean a group that's made of one person that can gather alternate versions of themselves
Oh,
from the
see,
former group.
because the chances of that happening, because just because that's another question that my character goes, why don't you just go to get a whole bunch of me's and just have a giant team of superheroes? And she's like, it doesn't work that way. You special version that's you in that world was able to make this trip. So other, like, you couldn't like collect a bunch of super villains that, because maybe only one of them can make the trip. And this is rare. We're talking multiverses with billions and billions of people, and maybe once out of like a million different universes one person can make this trip. I want it to be this amazingly rare thing, because I don't want the question like, why don't you just get a whole bunch of like in Marvel, why doesn't Thor go collect a million Thors and come by and just kill everybody? Because there's no restriction in the Marvel universe. Anyone can make the trip, and as long as they have like the time stone or whatever, anyone can do it. See, I don't want that. I want there to be it to be a special, because I don't want there to be just a collection of just one type of person. Because it kind of like that's what happened with what's his face? Remember in Loki? Remember he grew up with himself, the black guy at the end.
Yeah. Oh, you're talking about Kane.
Yeah, Kane basically made like a whole bunch of Kanes came together. I don't want a situation like that.
And Retro has an idea. He goes, any good ideas that made you that you throw away due to finding no place to fit it in?
Oh yeah, definitely. There's things where you think, oh, this is gonna work out, but as you start working through it kind of doesn't. Like I kind of wanted them to all to be superheroes in the beginning. Then I thought, well, no, why not just make them like from different worlds, like vastly different worlds. Like in Native's world, the elf, he's like, superhero, what the hell's a superhero? Like he doesn't understand what that concept even is. But in my character's world, yeah, there's all kinds of superheroes. It's like a superhero world, kind of like a My Hero Academia world, Power Ranger type world, where the heroes is like a thing, where like they're championed and the city loves them. But he couldn't even fathom the idea of like, what do you mean there's a bunch of superpowered beings and they go around destroying cities? Like what does that even, like he couldn't even imagine something like that.
And Gabby, when I said this, what happens to people that can't travel alternate worlds but try anyway?
There's going to be people that never do, because they have to be brought through. They can't just do it themselves. The either the darkness or the light has to pull them through. But they're constantly because since this has started, they've been looking for these people. So the darkness has been doing this longer than the light. So they kind of know better how to find people. Now, and the thing about the darkness, what makes it harder for them is they have to find people that can travel and are willing to go along with their plan. So they've been at it longer, but they can also see. I want them not necessarily like, oh, you poisoned your mind and they made you think this way. You had to have had that in you. That way of thinking, that darkness inside your heart had to have been there, or they wouldn't have been able to get to you. So I kind of don't want it to be, oh, the evil turned a good guy bad. No, you take responsibility for your actions. Yeah, they may have shown you a dark path and they may have held your hand, but you walked it. You decided to do it. And that's another thing I want the darkness to be like, we didn't force anyone to do anything. We didn't make these people fight for us. They wanted to fight for us. We showed them the way and they agree with us. So I want them to show like this evil isn't like a mind control situation or anything like that. They literally found people who, honest to God, feel that way. They feel that life shouldn't exist because all we do is hurt each other. I'm actually surprised there's so many questions. Thank you so much. I was afraid I was going to be talking to an empty audience, but thank you so very much for all the questions and stuff. That really has made this so much better for me.
Martin Gary said, I'm reminded of Darkwing Duck with a world of superheroes, and there's only one guy
that was funny.
Keep saving the ordinary guy.
Yeah, that was funny because they brought Darkwing Duck to this world, and he thought, oh, it's because I'm a hero, but he has no superpowers. So they keep putting him in these situations where like he's gonna get hit by a car, and then, oh, it's my turn to save him. He's like, what the hell, guys? I thought I was here because I was a hero, but no, they brought him just because he was human or just regular, like he had no powers. So yeah, that was a funny episode. I remember that episode. But yeah, this is a lot of fun. And guys, seriously, I have like 12 stories in my head and all kinds of stories. I have like a romantic comedy story. I have a more of a fantasy like a story about a goblin. I have a story about a little yak boy, and it's gonna imagine if Last Airbender and Bluey had a kid, and that's the kind of show that's gonna be. in my mind. It's going to be cute and adorable, but I also want there to be like adventure and stuff. I have a story about an alien race that comes to Earth and their struggles with integrating with human society and how that evolves and how the humankind kind of learns. Because I always hated the storylines where, oh, humans hate all the aliens and they want to kill them and put them in, like, District 9. I kind of want to show that humans can become better. Trek has infected my heart with goodness, with wanting to see better, to see that. So I got a story about that. I have a story, I have a story about a futuristic sports, I think it was futuristic sports animes with like mechas, and it's kind of like rollerball, but with like bigger mechs. So I got a story about that. So I want to do this more with more and more stories and more ideas. But this is the main one because these are the characters that are in my podcast. And I love these characters. And unlike, like, someone asked about like watching bad shows, does Noelle Stevenson love She-Ra? I don't know. The way she treated it, I don't know if she loved it. I don't know if she just found something and thought, oh, I'll just do my version of this. I care about my characters. When I come up with their storylines and sad things happen, it makes me sad. When the elf's family has all been slaves and he never knew his real family because as soon as you're born, you're just thrown into a slave camp, that makes me sad. I'm sad for him. But he's able to find this new family with a bunch of people he never knew existed. And that makes me happy that he could find that family. And I like that idea that you can go out and maybe in some way there is a family out there for you and they will accept you because it's a family. And in all the multiverses, there's someone out there for you. And I believe that. And I want there to be that goodness. And I want that someone to look up to that and thinking, yeah, maybe out there somewhere I'm never going to meet them because they're in some other universe, but my family is out there.
Yes, Savannah has a story. This is a little bit way in the future, but this is cool. What do you want the voice of characters if you get
Oh, jeez. I can't even think about that. It's so much.
So far, it's far in the
but
future.
I want to get a good artist. I want it to look good. That's the thing, too. And I won't, because I'm not going to disparage anyone from their Kickstarters or from their ideas. I backed a couple comics in my time, and the art, I'm not going to say who, the art's not that good. And even though the story's okay and I kind of like it, but they got out there and they funded it, I'd rather my story never be told unless it looks the way I want it to. You know how, like, in modern Western animation, everything looks like Family Guy and I can't stand it? I will not have it. I'd rather burn my story than it look like something I don't want it to look like. I want it to be of quality. I want the art to be good. I want the colors to look great. So if it takes me a while to get this done and I save up money, I just got a normal job. YouTube doesn't pay me much, hardly anything. But I want this to be something great. I want it to be cool. I want people to want to read the next issue. I want them to see the next action scene. I want them to feel bad when the heroes lose, and I want them to cheer when they win. I want them to feel uneasy when something happens and that big twist happens. I want the reader to not know who to trust, not know, oh man, what are they going to do now? Was this person lying the whole time? Was it a lie of omission? Is that the same thing as outward lying? So I want there to be that thing where you don't know if a character is going to give up. But I want them to fight through their pain, and maybe in some little way that helps a real person who's reading it fight through their pain. Because I think we all suffer things in life, and I want people to believe in themselves. And believe in good things like family and love and friendship. And I know friendship is magic, but those little things are enough to beat the darkness in the world, to beat the evil in the world. Someone helping someone up who fell down. That single act is good enough to beat back the evil in your life. That I want that feeling. But thinking about voice actors and stuff, it's just crazy because there's a lot of artists on Twitter and stuff that I want to, like, maybe do a cover or do like a little one shot, like 4-page issue, like in the back. I want there to be all kinds of fun stuff. Sticker designs, t-shirts, all that, thinking of the future, but I need to get this base story down. The first like 3 or 4 issues in my mind written out. I already have dialogue for the first issue, but I kind of figure out, okay, where do I stop? Where do you stop an issue and start the next one? Do I give away too much in the first issue, but I want to give away enough to where people want to keep reading? There's all that minutia I got to still figure out.
Yeah, Garby, when I said that's mentioned questions, but these very specific questions. We're getting real. Does the Crimson character ask the elf to use his bows?
See, I like the idea, since my character doesn't use weapons, He's gonna be like, oh, let me check that out. Like, let me see if and like he like breaks it or does something stupid. Like he doesn't understand like how like things work. But he's going to be more. I'm not saying like the comic relief character, but the one who's going to be like, oh, let's do this because in his world the heroes always win. And even though he's suffered loss, he still gets that feeling of like, oh, once we get into the battle, we win because that's what the good guys do. The good guys win. But he's going to have that kind of more of that optimistic feeling in the beginning of like battles and stuff. So like he's going to want to try, oh, use this spell and it's going to launch me in the air and then I'm going to do this thing. And they're thinking, no, that's not going to work. That's a stupid idea. But I want him to like want to like win in a flashy way because that's what you do. You do your big pose and then you're in the sky and you do a big attack. But he's going to have to learn that that's not always the best way to win. And maybe you caused someone to lose or you made a battle worse because of like you wanted to do things your way instead of wanting to do things the smart way.
Yeah, and Kirby 197 also said, what do the other three characters think of the fact that a goddess is a real thing?
See, that's see, I like N15 PCA's character because he was the easiest to convince of what's happening. Because like, oh, okay. Like he's thinking, well, there must have been something bigger out there than what I could understand. So he's like, oh, World of Goddesses, cool. Like he just gets it. Like the elf is like, well, I don't believe in gods because what kind of god would allow my people to be slaves? So like he's kind of like the agnostic, doesn't believe in any of that crap. But like my character is kind of more like, well, if you're here and I can punch it, then it's real. Like you kind of like, well, I guess you're physically here. What can I say that you're here? But yeah, guys, thanks for all the questions. I don't even know how long has this been going on.
Almost an hour and a half.
I can't believe it. I honest to God thought I was gonna go for 10 minutes and there'd be silence. But I love talking about this stuff. More questions, leave them once this video goes live. You can just leave more questions in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter at C15 Podcast. You can give me questions there. I answer DMs. I just want this to be big and criticisms, ideas, thoughts. Give it to me with both barrels. I want this to be good. I don't want a She-Ra. I don't want a Noel Stevenson She-Ra where I fall back on, well, my character's Mexican, so you can't make fun of him. You can't say he's bad. No, if I don't want there to be any type of shield where it's like, oh, you can't say something about my story. No, give it to me raw. I need to be better. I want to be better than those stories.
And Kirby 197 said, how old are the characters?
See, like my character's probably since Rose's character physically, I want everyone to be like in their mid-20s. I don't want teenagers because I don't want there to be like, teen angst. So everyone's like basically the oldest character physically will be M15 PCA's character because he's kind of more like the dad role. So he's going to be like in his late 30s. But like everyone else is kind of their 20s. And of course, Rose is a goddess. She's like 1,000 years old. But physically, she's like 27 or something. So, just look at the characters. You can kind of like figure out how old they are. I kind of want my character to be the youngest. Maybe like 19 or something. So he's still kind of like that rebellious, kind of coming out of his teens. He needs to start being more of a man and making decisions instead of just going with the flow. Because that's what he did on his world. Since he came from a world of other heroes, he had a whole family of heroes. He kind of just, whatever. Okay, we fight the bad guy. I'm not the main hero, but I'm kind of the side guy. I just, do what I got to do. So he never took a leading role. So he's going to have to learn to, because like I want the worlds to where only certain people can go. Maybe he needs to be that leader. And he has to learn to make that decision instead of always depending on someone else to make a decision. And that's something I struggle with. And everyone puts a little of themselves in their stories where I'd rather listen to a plan than come up with the plan. I can come up with plans. I can get things done, but I'd rather let someone else do it because I don't like the idea of like being the center of attention or anything. But that's something my character is going to have to learn, that step it up, make a decision. And once you make that decision, go through with it. Don't go halfway through a decision, oh no, and second think it, and that's when you screw up. Even if it starts going bad, you have to see it through the end. And that's something my character is going to have to learn throughout the series.
Gabby, when I said outside, do they have a battle cry like the Avengers Assemble? The only Sentai uses?
Yeah, I want him to keep coming up with different things. Like he changes it all the time because no one agrees with it because they think it's stupid. Especially Rose's character, I want her to almost be irritated with the fact that my character wastes his time calling out attacks and like wanting to do like, the Power Rangers, oh, we're fight for truth and justice. You need to do all the poses and stuff. And then it's just like, what are you doing? That doesn't make any sense. You're giving your enemy, you're announcing your presence. Just attack your enemy when they're not looking. I want there to be that dynamic where he still wants that little piece of his world because he's so used to fighting that way. He's so used to operating that way. I want there to be that little bit of levity to his character. But if you have any more questions, kind of leave them in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter, DM me. I'm on Instagram. All that stuff's in our I'm on the Discord. The Discord's free to join. It's in every video. You can click on it. Hit me up there. I just want to make this story big. I want to make it happen because if everyone remembers, I kind of went through like a kind of a sad time about 2 weeks ago. My whole life, I've always helped people. I've always like wanted their dreams to come true, and I've always did things for them. I always would go out of my way, work extra hours, do extra things so they can have the things that they wanted. And, that's not a bad way to do things, but I always put myself on hold. I always put my ideas on hold because I always thought it was selfish. But you know what? I want to tell my story now. I want to put all the effort that I put into other people, other people's projects, other people's dreams. I got to put that work into my dreams, into what I want to do. And I think this story is cool enough to be something that people want to watch. I want to watch my show. I think that's the barometer for me. I want to know what happens next. I want to see what happens to my characters because I have an ending already in my head, but what about the middle? All that's going to be new to me. As I'm writing it, it's like happening to me. So I'm excited for my story. I'm going to fight for my dream. I'm going to fight for my art and my stories and my characters because I want them to exist and I want other people to enjoy them too. So thanks for everyone who's stuck with us, who, gaining subs. I mean, when we first started the podcast, it was just me and 15 PCA just talking about random stuff. And slowly but surely, we started talking about cartoons and we started getting a following. And yeah, you guys are awesome. And I wouldn't have any of this if it wasn't for you guys. So, if there's any more questions, just leave them in the comments after the video posts. I'll try to answer all of them. Of course, I can't go into detail about everything, but yeah, this has been so much fun. Do we got any more?
Yeah, Garby had 2 questions. Who's the group leader and who's the second in command?
See, that's the thing. They're like in a family, it's, there's like a mom and a dad, but in this, it's just brothers and sisters. So I kind of like the idea of Rose's character being like, well, since I'm the strongest, I'm the leader. But at the same time, you don't necessarily know everything. So I don't like the idea of one person saying I'm the leader since not everyone can go on every mission. They're going to have to learn to work together. It's like, you're on a basketball team. Well, who's the leader of the basketball team? Well, the guy who dribbles up the ball. Well, yeah, kind of, but it's not necessarily your best player, but the person who knows the team. So I kind of want it to bounce around where each character has their moment to where they seem like they're the leader. They're the one that comes up with the solution. Because I don't want there ever to be a side character who does nothing. AKA She-Ra, where you had a dozen characters that did nothing. You had Mermista and Perfumina, and then they did nothing in the last season. Absolutely nothing. I don't ever want my characters to feel like they're worthless. I hate that. So I kind of want there to be a little bit of headbutting over that, but I do want them to come to the conclusion, we're a family, and that's what it is. There's no one's the leader, no one's taking command, we're a family, and we solve things like a family. And I do like the fact that it's an even number of people. So if 2 people think they should do something and 2 people think then you don't have that split. So like they have to come to a consensus. They have to come to an understanding with each other. I want that to be a message too, that you can come to an understanding with your family. Even if you don't agree with 100% of how something's happening, you're still a family. And regardless of what turns out, you're still a family no matter what happens. So was that any more questions?
No, not right now, no.
Okay, so it's been an hour and a half. Thank you guys for watching. This has been a ton of fun. I'll probably do another one of these for my other stories and see which ones resonate the most. And I want to make them. I want to make them all. I want them all to happen. I have cool, fun stories, serious, funny little kid stories, adult stories, more stories that are more grounded in reality, fantasy stories, all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm so glad you guys stuck it with me. You guys are like my internet family. So then some multiverse thing, maybe we're all family members and we can all make this happen together. And I want to do this for you guys, but I mostly want to do it for me.
And Gabby has one more question. He says he wants the little robot to be the tiebreaker.
yeah, but that doesn't count. I want it to be a thing with the robot doesn't count. I want funny things like that to pop up. I like the little robot character. I want to design him. I also want there to be I want there to be commentary. Like I want after the Rose and my characters fight, I want Rose to win. But I want them to come to an understanding. I already have lines of dialogue. So I want Rose to tell him that the strongest bonds are forged on the battlefield. And I want her she's like, I came to understand you through fighting you. And I want her to be talking to the robot And then he wakes up from getting his ass whooped, and he's like, "What are we talking to them for?" She's like, "Oh, it's a her." He's like, "What do you mean it's a robot?" She's like, "Oh no, this creature, this machine spoke very highly of you, spoke about all the great deeds you did, and for someone to be so kind, it had to be a woman. It had to be a female because no man could be this kind." Like, I wanted to still have that idea that men are lesser because in her world, all basically women rule everything. So I kind of wanted to be like that little like back and forth and little commentaries on how their worlds work. And I want that kind of dialogue. I want there to be, because in my family, we're like that. We talk crap. We love each other. We make fun of each other. We compliment each other. I want there to be that real family feeling between all the characters. But I'm going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks for all the questions. I absolutely loved just talking about things. I came up with new ideas just from talking with you guys. But yeah, going to end the stream. And thanks for watching, guys. Going to get some more reviews up. Owl House. I need to get back in Amphibia. Those things are going to happen. My eyeball is still jacked. Like, I can't see out of my left eye. That's basically how it is. And it's just hard for me to read with my right eye because it kind of gives me a headache because my depth perception's all off. But it's just something I got to deal with.
Yeah, we'll finish Lower Decks.
Yeah, we did record the audio for Lower Decks, the first episode. I just got to get back into it. I'm off tomorrow from work, so I'm going to try to get some more reviews out and watch another episode of Owl House and catch up with Amphibia. But yeah, what if we recorded audio? I just haven't made the episodes yet. So, yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I love every single one of you. And this story will come out. I don't care if it takes me 10 years. I will make this comic. I will make it happen. It's going to have amazing art because I'm not going to settle for anything but something that makes me excited. So, thank you, guys. Going to end the stream. Thanks for watching.